I never expected a simple act of kindness to lead me to a heartbreaking family secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started so innocently. The sun poured through my bedroom window, warming my skin. Outside, laughter mingled with the chirping birds. I had no idea that within hours my life would change forever. I was in the middle of my struggle, a quiet anxiety gnawing at my chest. My father's illness felt like an ominous cloud hovering overhead. The doctor's words echoed in my mind advanced stages, while my heart raced with each passing second. My mom tried to be strong, putting on a brave face, but I could see the cracks forming. Each day was a battle, and the days turned into weeks. My friends were supportive but couldn't grasp the depths of my fear. It was then, amidst this chaos, that an unexpected act of kindness unfolded. A stranger approached me while I was hunched over a park bench, tears blurring my vision. "You look like you could use this," she said, handing me a small simple flower. Its color was vibrant against the dull surroundings, and for a moment, I felt hope flicker inside me. But that was just the beginning. Her name was Clara, and she seemed to know more than she let on. That same day, I overheard her talking to someone about family secrets. The way she spoke, the urgency in her voice, the way her eyes darted made my heart race. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was entwined in a web of mystery. As the weeks unfolded, our paths crossed more often. Each encounter dripped with intrigue. Who was she? What did she know about my family? I began to dig. I searched through old family photos, searching for any hint of what Clara might be referencing. An unearthed picture, a faded smile at a family gathering from years ago, made my throat tighten. Why did it feel wrong? Why did I feel so lost? Things escalated quickly after that. I found old letters hidden in a dusty box in the attic. The ink was smudged, the words barely legible. But my heart dropped when I read them. Secrets danced off the pages, ghostly whispers revealing betrayals buried deep within our family history. I could hardly breathe. It felt as if I was suffocating under the weight of their truths. And then came Clara's shocking confession. "Your family isn't what you think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart plummeted into my stomach. What did she mean? The words echoed in my mind, spinning wildly. Was my life built on lies? I stood frozen, lost in a whirlwind of emotions. Could I unravel the truth, face the heartbreak? Questions surged within me. Who was I really? What did I deserve to know? My trembling hands clutched the letters, tears spilling down my cheeks. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed Clara's revelation were a storm of confusion and despair. It was as if the ground beneath me had crumbled, leaving me in a chasm of uncertainty. I sought refuge in my daily routine, but that sense of normalcy felt increasingly dissonant. At school, laughter echoed in the hallways, yet I drifted through the corridors like a ghost, untethered from the joy that used to fill my heart. That Saturday morning, I ventured to the local library, a space where I used to lose myself in stories. I thought perhaps the scent of old books might ground me, like a balm for my frayed nerves. As I roamed the aisles, a reminder of simple joys, I stumbled across an old family history book wedged between volumes of unfamiliar titles. Hesitant yet curious, I pulled it out, dust swirling around me like memories looking to resurface. As I flipped through its pages, I found family trees, names I recognized but also new ones that sent fresh pangs through my chest. One name in particular caught my eye: Elena Voss. It was a name unfamiliar to me but had an undeniable connection. It seemed to bridge the gap between the unknown and my present turmoil. I committed it to memory, wondering if this nameless figure held significance in the letters I had already read. Later that day, unable to shake the feeling that I was being watched, I glanced around my neighborhood while running errands, and there she was, Clara, leaning against a lamppost, watching me with an intensity that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. Summoning my courage, I approached her. "Why did you tell me my family isn't what I think? What do you know?" My voice trembled slightly, uncertainty mixing with urgency. She hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. It's complicated. I want to help, but you need to be ready for the truth. Each word felt heavier than the last, as if she were slowly unearthing shards of glass hidden within her heart. I need to know. There are names. Mysteries. I felt desperate, the thread of our conversation drawing taut between us. You deserve to know who you are, Clara said softly. There are things about your family secrets that could change everything. Before I could press her further, her phone beeped, and her expression shifted, concern etching her features. I have to go, she said, stepping back. But meet me tomorrow at the park. I can tell you more. I nodded, feeling a mixture of dread and hope. With a few tentative steps, Clara drifted away, leaving me alone beneath the evening sky. The weight of her words hung in the air, a fragile promise. The next day crawled by, the hours dragging like 1,000 tiny needles. I spent the time researching Elena Voss online, a name I hoped would hold answers. The web revealed fragments of a distant stories of betrayal, complicated love and loss. I felt the burden of my family's legacy pressing down. When I arrived at the park, the air felt electric with anticipation. My heart raced as I scanned the surroundings, finally spotting Clara on a weathered bench, her fingers fidgeting. I approached cautiously, as if entering a room filled with hidden truths. I found out something. I started, adrenaline coursing through my veins. About Elena, her eyes widened, drawing closer as though the mention of the name held some weight. What did you discover? Before I could respond, a sudden commotion disrupted our conversation. A child ran into the park sobbing, his eyes wide with fear. Without thinking, Clara rose and rushed to help. I watched, caught between irritation and admiration as she knelt down to comfort him. Hey, what happened? She asked gently, her tone softening the edges of his panic. Through hiccups of breath, he managed to stammer, I lost my mom. Clara's warm presence seemed to envelop him. She assured him that they would find her, her kindness a lifeline amidst his turmoil. In that moment I saw another side of Clara, compassionate, instinctual, grounding. As Clara led the boy down the path in search of his mother, I felt a pang of jealousy mixed with admiration. Yet while I watched her care for him, an unsettling thought struck me. What if Clara was also hiding something perhaps even darker about my family's past? What else was she holding back as she offered her fragmented truths? Just then, as Clara handed the boy over to a distraught woman, I felt my heart skip. My gaze caught something shiny in the grass just steps away. A silver locket, half buried in the dirt, its surface tarnished but undeniably intricate. With a mix of dread and hope, I bent to retrieve it. As I opened it, a picture of a woman looked back at me, a woman who bore an uncanny resemblance to my mother. But the moment of discovery was interrupted by a sharp gasp. Clara had turned and was staring at me with wide eyes, her expression mirroring my terror. Where did you find that? She asked, rushing toward me, her voice shaky. The answer hung heavy in the air as the realization twisted like a knife in my gut. The locket was just another piece of a much larger puzzle, one that I was still too afraid to fully comprehend. I could feel the walls closing in. Would I ever unravel the truth? Or was I destined to uncover even greater heartbreak? In that moment I understood. This journey was only just beginning, and its path appeared fraught with peril, shadows dancing just out of reach, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting elongated shadows across the park as Clara approached me, her face a blend of concern and something unnameable. Time itself felt suspended, a fragile pause in the air thick with unanswered questions. The locket dangled from my fingers like an anchor to the past, heavy with secrets begging to be unveiled. Please tell me, she urged, her voice a fragile thread woven through the haze of confusion enveloping me. I swallowed hard, grappling with the swell of emotions. I found it here. I didn't know it would lead to this. Clara, it looks like my mother. Her progression toward me felt like a delicate ballet, every step deliberate, every breath a measured attempt to close the chasm between us. That locket, it belonged to someone who had a connection to your mother and to Elena Voss. The name struck me like a bolt of lightning. Each syllable reminded me of the weight of every untold story, lurking within the margins of my family history. But more than that, it awakened a desperate need for clarity. Why is this happening? I asked, frustration mingling with an underlying fear. What do you know about Elena? Why was she in my family's story? Clara's gaze faltered, a shift in her demeanor reflecting the turmoil roiling within her. Because she was important. To both of you. But there are layers, things about your family that could change everything you think you know. Each word bore the weight of a potential fracture, threatening to upend everything. I felt a tender thread of hope interlaced with dread. Perhaps the truth could heal, but at what cost? As if sensing the emotional distance between us, Clara took a tentative step closer, her eyes pleading for understanding. Sometimes the truths we hold are the heaviest burdens we feel obligated to carry alone. Instinctively, I reached for her hand, the warmth of her skin grounding me amidst the emotional storm. I don't want to carry this alone. Before she could respond, a low whistle echoed through the park, pulling both our attentions away from our moment. A woman stood several feet away, her brow furrowed in suspicion. What are you doing with that? She called out, pointing toward the locket. I felt the blood drain from my face. It's mine, I stammered, holding it close as though it were a secret I needed to protect at all costs. Clara remained motionless, the unease hovering between us as I sensed the stranger's predatory interest. That locket doesn't belong to you, the woman stated, her tone sharp enough to sever the thin thread of solace between Clara and me. You don't even know what you're holding. A shiver raced up my spine. The mixture of her words and Clara's anxious expression suspended my thoughts, leaving only a sense of foreboding swirling around us. What did she know? Who are you? Clara asked, her voice steady despite the underlying tension. I could see her strength taking form as she stood her ground beside me. I'm someone who knows more than you think, the woman replied. The words dripped with condescension. Her piercing gaze flickered from Clara to me. Elena Voss. She was tangled in your family's lies. You have no idea what kind of darkness you're uncovering. Every ounce of confusion morphed into something much more tangible: fear. My hands trembled as I held the locket tightly to my chest, desperately wanting the ground to swallow me whole. What does that mean? What are you saying? The woman's lips curved into a smirk, almost predatory. Some stories are better left buried. You might want to think twice before digging deeper. With that cryptic warning hanging in the air, she turned and walked away, leaving Clara and me in stunned silence. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears like a countdown. I don't want to be scared anymore, I finally admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. I want to understand. I have to find out what's so terrifying about my family's past. Clara squeezed my hand gently, grounding me in the moment, but her eyes reflected a storm of their own, a realization that the truth might bring us into collision with more than just painful memories. The ground felt uneven beneath us. The shadow of fear was creeping closer, and the challenge of uncovering the truth suddenly seemed amplified. Feeling bold, or perhaps reckless, I spoke my next thought aloud. What if we found out together? What if we uncovered the links between my family and Elena? Clara hesitated, the flicker of dread visible in her eyes. There's a reason I hesitated to tell you everything, she murmured, almost to herself. There are things I haven't disclosed about my family too. Just then, a rustling in the bushes nearby captured our attention. Alarm whirled in my stomach as I turned, and almost simultaneously, Clara and I backed away together, battling the dawning realization that the secrets slumbering in our lives could erupt at any moment. As the movement grew more pronounced, I found myself on the edge of panic. What more would our search for truth unearth? What roots of darkness lay entwined in the branches of our histories? Out of the bushes emerged a boy, no older than 10, with a look of terror plastered across his innocent face. He gasped, eyes wide and searching. They're coming for you. My heart skidded to a halt. What did he mean? Who was coming? And just when I thought the shadows could not darken any further, I realized that I was about to be thrust into a confrontation with a family legacy far more complex and perilous than I ever anticipated. My breath caught in my throat, a mix of confusion and fear flooding my senses. The boy's innocent plea reverberated through me, causing my heart to thud erratically. What do you mean? Who's coming for us? I managed to stammer, glancing anxiously at Clara. His small stature seemed almost lost against the backdrop of looming trees and dusk-lit shadows. I heard them. They're looking for you. They said something about a locket. The seriousness of his tone sent a chill racing down my spine. Clara's grip tightened on my hand as if she were anchoring both of us to the ground. What are you talking about? Who did you hear? She pressed, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The boy hesitated, shifting his weight nervously. I ran because I didn't want to stay. They were angry and they have things that belong to you. His voice shook as he spoke, each word weighted with implications I could scarcely bear to consider. Things that belong to me? I echoed, the reality of his statement washing over me like a cold tide. What do you mean? There's a place, a cabin in the woods just past the park, he said, glancing toward the darkening tree line. They said if they find you, they'll take you there. Every instinct screamed at me to run, yet something else simmered beneath fertile curiosity wrapped in a cloak of dread. Who are they? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. What do they want with me? The boy's eyes darted nervously, his small hands wringing together as he weighed his options. His hesitation felt like an eternity. I can't say. Just please be careful, he finally whispered, glancing back toward the bushes as if expecting some unseen threat to emerge any moment. As the weight of his warning pressed against my already burdened shoulders, Clara stepped forward. Wait, she called, rushing to his side. You shouldn't go alone. If you heard if they're after him, maybe we can help each other. He shook his head vigorously, fear flashing across his face. No, you don't understand. They don't want to be seen. They'll hurt your families. The urgency in his voice was visceral, cutting through the haze of my apprehension. I could feel Clara's gaze shifting between us, assessing the boy's authenticity and the sharp undertones of danger etched into his words. What about your family? I pressed, needing assurance that in this chaotic web of uncertainty, we weren't alone. Do you know anything about the locket? Please, we need to know. He bit his lip, glancing over his shoulder towards the now vacant tree line. My uncle, he's part of it. I overheard him talking about the locket. Dangerous things. His voice trembled, spilling fear into the evening air. With the truth hovering just out of reach, the fragile world I knew felt as if it were unraveling. Clara, I whispered, summoning her attention back to me, we need to go. We have to find out what's going on while we still have the chance. She nodded, the fear glimmering in her eyes giving way to determination. Together, she affirmed softly, and whatever darkness is there, well, face it. Before I could answer, the boy stepped back, his tiny form illuminated in the fading light. Be careful, he said once more, the urgency in his voice mirroring the frantic beat of my own heart. If they find you with the locket, he didn't finish as fear washed over his face anew. Suddenly, without warning, he turned and bolted down the path, disappearing into the shadows before I could reach for him. Wait! I shouted, but the forest swallowed his small form, leaving only the echo of his warning behind. My chest tightened, anxiety clawing at me. Did he mean the same people? Clara whispered, her voice trembling as she looked at me, uncertainty twisting her features. I don't know, but I think we need to go to that cabin he mentioned. My resolve hardened, though uncertainty churned within. If there could be answers there, we can't afford to walk away. Clara swallowed hard, tilting her head as she considered our decision. But what if it's a trap? What if they really do mean us harm? As the shadows deepened, uncertainty wrapped around us. Like a shroud, the echoes of danger whispering in the rustling leaves and soft wind. Yet I could feel an unmistakable thread of hope lace through Clara's apprehension, an unyielding bond forming between us in the face of adversity. I don't care, I replied fiercely, bolstered by her presence beside me. I want to understand. I won't shy away from what's ahead, no matter how scary it may seem. Then let's go, she said, steeling herself as she intertwined her fingers with mine, grounding me amidst the upheaval. With the locket secured in my pocket, we began walking toward the unknown, each step echoing with the weight of unspoken fears and the ferocity of newfound determination. But even as we waded deeper into the encroaching dusk, I couldn't shake the haunting thought that in our pursuit of the truth, the darkness that had entangled our families might not be as distant as we hoped. And perhaps as my thoughts turned toward our unknown future, the boy had been right to warn us after all. What awaited us in the shadows would change everything once again, irrevocably. And as the last rays of twilight faded, I felt the shadows around us writhe with anticipation, as though they knew secrets that were meant to remain buried. The forest enveloped us in its thick embrace as Clara and I moved cautiously deeper into the unknown. The faint crunch of leaves underfoot mingled with the rustle of distant branches overhead, each sound heightening the tension in the air. It felt as if the trees were conspiring against us, whispering secrets we were too vulnerable to decipher. I could feel Clara's grip tightening around my hand, our fingers intertwined as if we were clinging to the last vestiges of hope. Each step we took was a silent pact between us, a promise that together we could face whatever darkness lay ahead. But beneath that determination stirred a foreboding anxiety that threatened to unravel me. The boy's warnings echoed in my mind, a dissonant chorus against the backdrop of this eerie twilight. "Oh, you think he'll be okay?" Clara murmured suddenly, breaking the silence with a note of concern. It was as if the fear that plagued me was now mirrored in her eyes too, and I wondered if my resolve was starting to waver. "Yeah," I replied, but the lie felt like a heavy stone in my throat. The boy's terrified expression lingered, a reminder that he had warned us away from danger, and yet we were barreling headlong toward it anyway. "He's a smart kid. He'll find a way to stay safe." But what if he was wrong? The thought gnawed at me. What if they did come for him? That would be more than just his own tragedy. It felt deeply connected to mine and Clara's lives. As we continued, the faint glow of the cabin materialized through the underbrush. Insignificant in its isolation, yet significant for what it might hold: answers, intrigue, perhaps even a family legacy long buried. But it was the dread of what we might unearth that sent a tremor through my heart. Once we arrived, the cabin stood still and silent, cloaked in shadows. I hesitated at the threshold, a knot of uncertainty forming in my stomach. "What if this is a trap?" I whispered, my voice barely rising above the crunch of gravel beneath our feet. "We won't know until we look," Clara murmured, her resolve steadying me. "Besides, how can we find answers if we don't take the risk?" Her words ignited a spark of courage within me, driving me to push open the creaky door. It swung inward with an ominous groan, revealing a small, dimly lit room filled with dust and shadows. Cobwebs clung to the corners like forgotten memories, but the air was laced with something else: an unshakable tension. "Let's split up and look for anything that might give us a clue," Clara suggested, her voice distant but filled with determination. "I'll take the left side, you check the right." I nodded, though unease fluttered in my chest. We ventured in separate directions, scanning the shelves, the tables, and the nooks in desperate hope of unraveling the mystery that bound us to this place. Time slipped away, each moment stretching as I dug deeper into the layers of neglect and dust. Suddenly, a shrill cry pierced the stillness, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Clara!" I called out, my heart racing. I rushed toward the source, fearing the worst. She emerged from behind a faded curtain, her face pale, clutching something in her hands. "It's a photo," she breathed, her voice trembling. "But it's us." My heart lurched as I made my way closer, peering at the fraying edges of the photograph. Staring back at us was a picture of Clara and me from years ago, bright smiles illuminated by the Suna memory long buried. But what stopped my breath was the old woman beside us, a spectral presence that looked strikingly like our grandmother, though I had never known her to be anything but kind. "Where did you find this?" I stammered, my throat tightening as I struggled to comprehend the implications. Clara's tears glistened as they threatened to spill. "It was inside an old drawer." She turned to look at me, an urgency aflame in her gaze. "But how could we have been here before?" "Maybe it wasn't just this cabin," I murmured, my thoughts racing. What if there was more to our family's past than we understood? What if before I could finish, a sharp noise shattered the air, a loud bang echoing from outside? My heart sank, dread clawing at me. "Did you hear that?" I asked, panic creeping into my voice. Clara nodded, eyes wide. "We need to," but before she could finish, the door swung open with a bang, splintering against the frame, revealing the shadowy figures outside. My blood ran cold. "We found you," one of them said, a chilling smile stretching across his face. "And now you're coming with you." As the figures advanced, I felt the photograph slip through my fingers, hitting the ground and scattering into the darkness, a fragment of hope, lost among a storm of uncertainty. As I grasped Clara's hand tightly, both of us swallowed by fear and realization, I understood with gut-wrenching clarity. Whatever lay ahead would rip apart the fragile strands connecting our past and future. And in that moment, as we stood on the precipice of impending darkness, I couldn't help but wonder if everything I thought I knew was about to change forever. The figures loomed closer, their silhouettes distorted by the dim light of the cabin. The air, thick with terror, pressed down on me as I instinctively pulled Clara behind me, shielded from the malicious glints in their eyes. My heart thudded in my chest like a caged animal, desperate to escape. "Who are you?" I shouted, my voice straining against the tremors of fear. One of the figures took a step forward, his features emerging from the dark as he smirked, his hand resting casually in his coat pocket. "Just friends of the family," he drawled, each word laced with condescension. "It's time you learned the truth about your heritage." Clara squeezed my hand tighter, her warmth, a small comfort against the chill uncanny. Panic surged as I searched for an escape, but the door was now blocked, and the only other exit was through the wide, open window behind me, tauntingly enticing freedom as the night air whispered through it. "Whatever you think you know, you're wrong," I shot back, a flicker of defiance igniting in my chest. "You're not taking us anywhere." That I could sense Clara's disbelief swirling alongside my own. Did they really know something about us, something more than just whispers of our past? My thoughts spiraled into a cacophony of doubt and dread, fueled by the haunting photograph that lay scattered on the floor, a symbol of our innocence, now tainted by shadows. The man chuckled darkly, his amusement grating against my senses. "Oh, but you'll want to know," he replied, eyes narrowing. "Your grandmother didn't just leave memories behind. The legacy you're wrapped in, it's much more complicated than you realize." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, her voice a whisper, barely audible over the hammering of my heart. "Perhaps it would be easier if I showed you," he said, stepping aside as the other figures moved in, the space between us closing in like a vice. My instincts screamed to fight, to run, anything to get Clara away from them. Thankfully, the sound of crunching leaves outside drew their eyes and momentarily alleviated the pressure. "Stay here, I'll check it out," the first figure ordered, casting a shadow over us as he turned to peek into the night. But in that fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of kindness, the sudden flutter of movement from within the trees. A small figure cloaked in darkness. Before I could process what I was witnessing, the figure dashed towards us, small but determined, a flash of bravery rushing in like a train. It was the boy from before, the kid who had warned us just before we ventured into the forest. "Run!" he yelled, launching himself through the door and straight into the group, arms flailing to create a distraction. "You have to get out of here." The surprise on the figures' faces opened a window of opportunity that felt like a lifeline. I grabbed Clara's wrist, and together we bolted toward the window, the cacophony behind us a chaotic reminder that time was running out. "Stop them!" the leader of the figures shouted, urgency cracking his voice. But we were already through the window, landing hard but alive, rolling onto the damp earth with adrenaline coursing through our veins. The forest closed in around us, but the boy, our unexpected savior, was right there. "Follow me," he urged, his eyes wide with fear matching our own. We dashed behind him, weaving through the trees as shadows loomed behind. Clara followed closely, her breath hitching, fear battling against hope. We ran in silence, exchanging frantic yet grateful glances that spoke volumes. "Why did you come back for us?" I managed to ask between gasps, stumbling slightly over a gnarled root. "They're not who you think they are," he replied, urgency thick in his voice. "They know the truth about your family, and it's dangerous. They want to silence you both." As the boy led us into the underworld of the forest, darting between foliage and brambles, the dread that had gnawed at me transformed into an unquenchable thirst for answers. I had to know what he meant, what kind of truth was tied to the photograph, to our grandmother, and to the ominous figures pursuing us. Finally, we slowed our frantic pace when we reached a small clearing, moonlight spilling down in a silver shimmer. I turned to the boy, feeling the echoes of fear resonating around us. "What is this about our grandmother?" I asked, almost pleading. He hesitated, eyes flicking back to where we had escaped. "Your grandmother was part of something significant, a family secret that could alter everything you know about your bloodline. They won't stop until they have that legacy back in their hands." Before I could respond, a loud crash came from the direction we had fled. It was followed by a familiar voice echoing through the trees, one that sent ice through my veins. "Find them. They must not escape." As realization crashed down hard, I could feel the weight of the truth bearing down on us. The night felt suddenly colder, the shadows darker. And as I looked at Clara, the fear written across her face mingled with something else, curiosity, and a flickering flame of hope. Together we stood on the precipice of discovery, the cliff of darkness lingering just out of reach, pulling us into its depths. But as the boy inhaled deeply, hesitating on the edge of some revelation, I knew we had merely cracked the surface of a family secret that could shatter or save us. Then came the chilling realization that it would not only be our past they would seek to control but our future. And with the figures hunting us relentlessly, we were once again out of time. The woods echoed around us, twisting the shadows into ominous shapes, each rustle of leaves a reminder of our precarious position. The clearing felt like both a sanctuary and a trap, and the palpable tension clung to the air like mist. Clara's wide eyes met mine, both of us grappling with the weight of the boy's revelation. If they find us, we're dead, Clara whispered, her voice trembling as fear crept back into her heart. Not if we keep moving, I replied, forcing courage into my own tone. I turned to the boy who had saved us. Do you have a plan? He nodded, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of uncertainty. We need to get to the old cabin. There's something there that might help. Without waiting for another second, we fell back into the embrace of the trees, heartbeats quickening with each stealthy step. The panic felt close, an ever-looming specter, but we had each other and the boy's bravery to buoy us. I could barely comprehend the implications of what we were running from. All I could focus on was the desperate need for safety. The path was nothing like the one we had followed before. It twisted and turned with ever-increasing intensity, leading us deeper into the throbbing heart of the wood. Clara managed to keep pace beside me, but I could see her resolve fading. Fear and fatigue were an unshakable duo that lingered in her movements. The cabin is just ahead, the boy urged, his determination sparking a glimmer of hope within me. But just as we rounded a particularly thick grove, we froze in place, breath caught in our throats. Ahead, standing rooted like grotesque sculptures, were the figures watching, waiting, their eyes glimmering with twisted anticipation. How did they catch up? I whispered, panic threatening to take control once more. They must have another way, the boy replied, backing away slowly as if retreating would somehow negate our visibility. What do we do? Clara asked, her voice barely a breath, trembling in the grip of fear. Just then, a low growl echoed in the distance, reverberating through the trees. In an instant the figures turned, focus shifting away from us toward the sound. I drew Clara close, our shared fright manifesting in the tight grip of our hands. What was that? She breathed, eyes darting around nervously. Someone, the boy answered, his brow furrowed with uncertainty. But I could tell he sensed the shift in atmosphere, our little pocket of panic being diverted by a much larger impending danger. Within moments, a massive shape burst forth from the Shadowsa wolf, fierce and wild, eyes glowing like embers in the darkness. It moved with purpose and authority, but it didn't advance on us. Instead, it circled the figures, growling warningly, staking its claim in an act of powerful dominance. Run! The boy yelled, seizing the moment of distraction. Without hesitation, we plunged deeper into the forest as the commotion began to erupt behind us. The cacophony of snarls and shouts ignited a burst of adrenaline within me, and for a brief second, the world narrowed to just our escape. The old cabin soon materialized ahead, a weathered structure almost swallowed by the forest, the moonlight casting an ethereal glow upon its wooden exterior. As we dashed toward it, the boy slipped ahead, throwing open the rickety door like he'd done it 1,000 times before. Inside, he urged, urgency spilling from him as Clara and I stumbled through the threshold. The room smelled of age and must, and the dim light from a single bulb dangled overhead, flickering as though it too held its breath. What's in here? I asked quickly, but my question was met with silence. The boy was rifling through a collection of old crates and boxes strewn haphazardly around the space. Your grandmother kept things, he said, a deep furrow settling on his brow. Clues about your family, about the legacy. A soft whimper outside drew my attention, and I turned to see the wolf pacing just at the edge of the clearing, watching and waiting. The growls behind it grew quieter, the figures in pursuit slowed, their menacing energy dissipating. I felt a strange connection to the creature. It seemed almost like a guardian, fighting our battle without speaking a word. Here, the boy shouted, pulling out a dusty journal, its leather cover cracked and worn. This is what we need. It has everything. He tossed it gently into my hands, and I could feel the inexplicable weight of history pressing against my palms. What does it say? Clara asked, eyes wide with both fear and hope. That I don't know yet, I replied, Flipping it open tentatively, the pages brittle beneath my touch. As I scanned the strange, scrawled words and old photographs, my heart began to race as I stumbled upon a family tree. I traced the lines, growing dizzy as they formed connections to names I had only ever whispered around family gatherings. Go back to sleep, Grandma, I muttered, unsettling visions of our past creeping into my mind. Suddenly Clara gasped, pointing to an inscription that jumped out at you, sewn that changed everything. Look, it mentions the artifacts. The legacy. Her voice trembled as the realization washed over her. They're linked to our powers. That's what they want. The crackling tension was interrupted by a series of loud thuds against the cabin door. The figures had found us. The boy turned to us, his eyes fierce. We have to finish this. We can't let them take it. And just as I gathered enough courage to speak, everything shifted. The door splintered at their assault, shaking with a force that threatened to topple it completely. A loud crash sent splinters flying, and time slowed as I braced myself for the confrontation. Fear coiled tighter in my chest, and I felt Clara press against me, our shared resolve weaving a fragile thread of strength in the face of overwhelming odds. In that moment, I understood that whatever was about to happen would test us like never before. Secrets long buried would come to light, and our lineage, entwined with dark forces, demanded a reckoning. The truth was within our grasp, but would we have what it took to face it? And then, with a thunderous crack, the door burst open. A figure stood silhouetted in the frame, and as the moonlight poured in, illuminating wide, familiar eyes staring back at us, my heart dropped into the pit of my stomach. Hello, dear, she said softly, the voice unmistakable, me grandmother, alive and achingly real, rising from the shadows of our past. The world around us twisted, moments catching and colliding like fallen leaves in a storm. I stood frozen, overwhelmed by the presence that erupted into our most vulnerable hour. My grandmother, whom I had thought lost to time, to the annals of family lore, stood framed by the cabin doorway. The memories of her gentle voice and warm embrace crashed against the stark reality of this haunting reunion, resurrecting both wonder and fear within me. What? How? My voice faltered, choked by disbelief and a tempest of emotions swirling within me. Clara nudged closer, her gaze darting between the shadows of past and the daunting truths of our present. You're alive? She whispered, breathing out a question that weighed heavier than stones. The figure stepped forward, her silhouette transformed as moonlight illuminated the grief etched in her expression. There's much to explain, she said, a softness tinged with sorrow. But first you must both understand why you're here. Why they hunt you. I felt the boy's presence next to us, his body tense, a living reminder of the danger still lurking beyond the cabin walls. We were splitting at the seams, caught between the urgent need to escape and the longing to uncover the mysteries that spun around us like a web. Grandma, you don't understand, I began, my mind racing, stitching together fragments of stories and the truth I had been too afraid to confront. I do understand, she interrupted, her gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that pierced through the clamor of questions piling in my head. I've watched over you, both of you, from a distance. The weight of her words wrapped around my heart, squeezing until it ached. A surge of warmth battled the chill of uncertainty that dogged us since our flight into the woods. But the crack of wood splintering interrupted our reunion, sending shards of panic slicing through the fragile atmosphere of hope. The entities were growing more desperate, eager to reclaim what had been lost, what once belonged to them. Help us! Clara's voice was raw, fear burgeoning as the sounds of their approach grew closer, a choir of sinister desires queuing for a dark return. My grandmother looked from Clara to me, then back to the door, where shadows danced dangerously close. Her posture shifted, resolute. You have powers, she stated, as though it was an ordinary fact. You both have gifts that tie you to our family's legacy, a legacy they seek to extinguish. But how? I pressed, urgency pouring from my veins, mingling with frustration. What do they want with us? With the artifacts? The artifacts are part of a pact, one my ancestors made. They hold the keys to our lineage, binding us to both light and darkness. Those who pursue you wish to seize that power, she explained, words spilling like broken glass around us. They believe that if they can destroy you, they can claim the legacy for their OWM. My heart raced, the truth gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. But we can protect it, can't we? A pained look passed over her face, hinting at a painful truth lurking beneath the surface. It's not that simple, dear. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, it felt as though the weight of generations pinned down her spirit. You must learn to wield it, to understand the darkness that resides within you. Only then will you have a chance. The door shuddered violently, rattling in its frame, edging us closer to the threshold of horrors. I took a step back, torn between embracing the wisdom she bore and the imminent threat looming just beyond the wood. Teach us, I finally managed, saying the words out loud as hope knotted tight in my throat. She stepped further into the cabin, casting a searching glance toward the ladder leading to the attic above. There's an artifact hidden up there. It was meant for you to guide your journey. Before I could respond, the door burst wide open, collapsing against the wall with a resounding crash. The shadows poured into the cabin, a dark tide that swept along the wooden floor. Instinctively, I shifted in front of Clara, my body a sword drawn, shielding her from the palpable despair. Closing in, and then, as though orchestrating a cruel symphony, the figures emerged, faces twisted in malevolence, eyes alive with an insatiable hunger. My grandmother turned sharply, revealing the new depth of her own powers as she conjured a barrier of shimmering light in front of us. Go. She shouted, urgency rising as the entities clustered dangerously close, their malignant intent crackling in the air. I'll hold them back. Let me help you. I cried out, desperation shattering my voice. But she shook her head, fierce determination glimmering in her eyes, and oh, you are the light, they cannot touch you if you stay connected to each other. I won't let them take you. With that declaration, she raised a hand, and an explosion of radiant force surged from her fingertips, pushing the malevolent presence back if only for a fleeting moment. Clara clutched my hand tightly, fear coursing through us like the wild currents of the storm outside. We can't leave her, she gasped, her eyes wide with frantic energy. And yet, we were left with no choice. Turning, we raced toward the rickety ladder, caught between the suffocating urgency of our survival and the anguished sounds echoing behind us. Each step felt like a betrayal, a piece of our hearts pulled away, keeping us at the mercy of our destinies. The attic door creaked against our weight as we climbed, the air growing thicker with secrets yet unveiled, as if our very essence pulsated with unspoken truths. What will we find? Clara asked, breathless and terrified as we reached the top, its dim light flickering ominously. Something that can change everything, I replied, my voice steady even as doubt clawed at me from all sides. But in that moment of unwavering trust, I noticed something distinctive about our surroundings, the faint glow of relics lingering, cloaked in whispers of magic and memory. As I stepped further into the attic, hands trembling, I felt the fabric of my lineage coiling around me, thick with the weight of history and hidden choices. The air bristled with potential as my fingers brushed over something cool and metallic, shining deliberately in its unexpected brilliance. Lydia, Clara whispered, apprehension lacing her tone. It echoed somewhere deep inside me, illuminating a forgotten path. And then everything changed. A loud crash reverberated through the cabin as the barrier my grandmother had erected cracked, and fragments of light sputtered like dying stars. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. We have to hurry, I urged, the weight of legacy now palpable in the ether around us. Just then Clara grabbed my arm, steering me away from the frantic chaos rushing behind us. Lydia, we need to make a choice. Will we embrace this, whatever it is? In that critical moment, I understood the gravity of our predicament, the swirling darkness threatening to eclipse what I held dear, and the unseen bonds that could either save us or shatter into nothingness. But then among the chaos, I caught another glimpse of the figure that lurked in the shadows, watching us with pitiful longing. My heart hitched in my chest as recognition surged, a life thread, I thought severed now awakening in a single heartbeat. Stop! I yelled, the energy vibrating around me consuming my every thought. It was impossible, yet undeniable, something I hadn't expected. Lost family resurfacing within the shadows of our perilous reality. Lydia, Clara called, panic straining her voice as I stepped toward it, an irresolvable force pulling at my essence. And as I reached out, the boy pulled me back, the truth crashing over us like waves. Don't you see? It's a trap. Time stood still as realizations collided, our hearts racing in unison. With the promise of hope lingering just out of reach and darkness climbing ever closer. What awaited us from the lingering shadows? Just one decision stood before me, a harrowing classed reality that could tear apart the tenuous strands binding my past and future. And in this moment, I knew we stood on the precipice of something far greater than ourselves, drifting into the unknown. And as the light pulsed within my fingertips, I heard my grandmother's voice echoing softly, a plea that wove through the storm, puncturing the very fabric of fate. "Lydia, choose wisely." But before I could comprehend my own answer, the figure advanced once more, and a surge of blinding light erupted into the darkness around, usual sense of time twisting and contorting, sealing us in that fragile moment of revelation. And then with a blinding flash I was thrown into a void, everything I once knew spiraling out of reach. The void was heavy, thick with silence, as if the universe held its breath, preparing to release 1,000 truths all at once. I floated in nothingness, bewildered, my mind a swirl of fragments, the specter of my grandmother's warning echoing endlessly in the void. Choose wisely. There was no sense of time as the darkness enveloped me, yet a flicker of warmth pulsed through the shadows, beckoning me toward clarity. Fingers tingling, a fire rushed through my veins, igniting memories intertwined with sorrowful threads of hope. I could still feel Clara's hand gripping mine, its warmth a tether to reality. The fleeting moment of connection felt like a lifeline in this overwhelming abyss. Suddenly, the void cracked open as if the universe conspired to bring me back. I tumbled through a kaleidoscope of colors, visions flickering past memories I'd buried deep beneath layers of confusion and grief. My childhood home, my grandmother's smile, the sound of laughter echoing in the summer sunite was all washed away by the unforgiving tide of reality, and then I landed with a thud, breathless and disoriented. The attic loomed around me, cloaked in shadows, but this time illuminating a different path, one interwoven with strands of destiny yet to unfold. Clara was beside me, her face etched with sharp worry as if the experience had left marks deeper than skin. "What just happened?" she whispered, her voice a fragile tremor in the vast silence of the attic. I think I saw something," I murmured, still reeling from the transition. It was not just memories, it was more, richer, vibrating with potential. I felt something, someone watching, but it was like a moment before a dream fades away. Clara's expression flickered between hope and apprehension. "We can't be losing our grip now. Whatever that was, they're closing in." I shook my head, a sense of determination settling in my chest. We couldn't let fear dictate our actions any longer. "There has to be something in here," I said, the weight of my words filling the space between us. "We just need to find a way to harness what we are." As I turned, I noticed an ornate trunk in the corner, dust motes swirling in the dim light like ancient whispers urging me to discover what lay beneath its artfully engraved surface. With hesitant hands I approached, Clara trailing close behind. "It looks old," she murmured, her gaze darting around the attic as if expecting the shadows to come to life. I knelt beside the trunk, my fingers tracing the intricate designs, constellations intertwined with symbols I barely recognized, but felt an undeniable connection to. With one swift motion I unclasped the locks, and the lid creaked open, releasing a scent of aged wood and secrets long forgotten. Inside, nestled within silk and velvet, lay an assortment of relics, family heirlooms each steeped in the essence of generations. A deep connection blossomed in my heart as I recognized a pendant gleaming like moonlight. It was an ornate piece, shaped like a heart encased in silver threads. A locket that felt impossibly familiar, as if it contained pieces of my mother's laughter and sorrow. I reached for it, fingers trembling as the locket felt warm against my skin. Clara's voice broke my concentration. "What is it?" "It's my mother's," I whispered, certain as memories flooded back her smiling face, her gentle admonitions, her unwavering love, and the day she painstakingly entrusted me with it. A second memory tugged at the edges, something darker shifting into focus, a family secret buried under the weight of love and loss. "What did she mean when she said choose wisely?" Clara asked, the tension hanging thick as I reluctantly closed my fingers around the locket. I think it holds more than just a memory." I felt the energy pulsating from the locket in rhythm with my heart, alive with stories waiting to be told. "It may be the key to our legacy." Before I could process her words further, the ground quaked beneath us, sending ripples of dread cascading through the air. The shadows began to swirl, moving hungrily toward us, latching onto the very essence. A fear coursing through my veins that "We can't stay here," Clara urged, panic etching itself onto her features as she grabbed my arm again. "They'll be on us any moment." The weight of the locket hung heavy against my chest, igniting a spark I hadn't anticipated. "Wait," I said, my heart racing. "What if it can protect us? What if it answers the questions we have?" Clara's eyes widened, shadows threatening to swallow us whole, but determination burned back. "Then we have to find out," she said, clenching her jaw. "We can't let the opportunity slip away." With an unsteady breath, I opened the locket, revealing a photograph that took my breath away. It showed a family I had never met but recognized at once, a younger version of my mother, laughing against the backdrop of a familiar cabin like the one we hid in, flanked by a man I instinctively knew was my grandfather. But there was something more shocking. An unfamiliar girl stood next to them, her eyes sparkling with mischief and confidence. She looked so much like me. "Lydia." Clara pulled me back to reality. "Now's not the time." I blinked, still entranced by the photograph's intricate details. The familiar girl was a reflection of everything and nothing gone, echo of lost possibilities. "I think she's my sister," I stammered, breathless at the implications. "What? Wait. How?" Clara's voice was a mix of urgency and confusion, fierce as the darkness pressed closer. Before I could articulate the depths of this new revelation, an explosive crash echoed from below. The entities were no longer content to wait. They were determined to tear apart the fragile threads that bound our fate. "Lydia, we have to move." Clara's voice was now sharp with resolve. I took a deep breath, clutching the locket tightly. "We'll face this together," I said, and we scrambled to our feet, ready to embrace whatever followed. As we descended into the chaos below, uncertainty gripped me like ice, but a flicker of hope burned brighter. There was so much more to unravel, so many pieces waiting for connections, and even if the darkness loomed, I could still feel the call of destiny wrapping around me like a protective cloak. But as we stood at the door, hearts pounding in sync with the imminent danger ahead, the haunting realization settled in. Truths oft hidden bore a weight heavier than shadows, and as the world awaited our next steps, the entangled legacies of love and betrayal beckoned, leaving us to confront the ultimate question. Would the discovery of family bring us together or tear us apart irrevocably? And as the door burst open to greet us, a figure emerged, a familiar face cloaked in darkness, their expression a mirror of my own, a reflection from my past, carrying echoes of the secret that could change everything. The world around us dissolved into chaos, shrouded in shadows that simultaneously threatened and promised answers long buried within my family's legacy. The heavy wooden door swung open, revealing a figure enshrouded in darkness, a specter I had both yearned to see and dreaded with every fiber of my being. My heart stuttered in my chest as recognition hit me like a tidal wave. "Lydia," my sister breathed, her voice trembling and laced with disbelief. There she was, Elena, the sister I never knew existed, standing in the cusp of our family's history like a guardian of the past. For a moment, everything felt frozen, the heavy shadows poised to engulf us as I blinked back the brimming tears of a family reunion I had never imagined possible. "Elena," I whispered, the name slipping from my lips like a prayer. "You're real." She stepped forward, eyes wide with emotion, and I could see the resemblance that was more than just physical, a shared vulnerability etched in the contours of her face. "I thought I lost you forever," she said breathlessly, wrapping her arms around me in a fierce embrace that felt like a lifeline thrown into an ocean of despair. "I thought I was alone," I replied, the words bursting forth, thick with years of yearning. But the moment of connection didn't last long. Clara's voice broke through the sanctuary of our reunion, urgency crackling in her words. "They're coming. We have to go." As if the very fabric of reality understood its burden, the air shifted, the shadows in the room swirling like a tempest. The figures that had hunted us, relentless and sinister, were now racing toward the cabin, driven by the singular desire to reclaim what they thought was theirs. Elena's presence ignited a wild surge of hope. Despite the peril surrounding us, the knowledge that I wasn't alone felt like a sword of light breaking through the veil of fear. "What do we do?" I asked, my voice trembling as I held onto Elena's hand, feeling the warmth of newfound kinship coursing through me. "There are more artifacts," she said, urgency tightening her features. "They're hidden throughout the cabin and they hold the truth that binds our families and fortifies our legacy." "Legacy," Clara echoed thoughtfully, glancing nervously toward the door as if sensing the malevolent figures inching closer. "Do we even know what we're really up against?" More than you realize, Elena said, her voice steadying, the bond of sisterhood fortifying our courage. This isn't about just us. These artifacts have the power to break the chains that bind our mothers and claim our rightful place. With a nod, I pulled the locket from my neck, holding it tremblingly in front of the three of us. If it truly binds our family together, we can use it. The glow radiating warmth offered a small fragment of hope in the face of encroaching darkness. Elena's eyes lit up. Yes, our blood connects. Together we can harness the power of our ancestors. We must channel everything we have, but we must hurry. As Clara darted toward the nearby trunk, I followed Elena down a narrow corridor, memories flickering at the edges of my consciousness, urging us to uncover the truths submerged within our family's legacies. She opened another door, revealing a room cluttered with dusty relics and forgotten memories, the glow of the moon spilling through the windows illuminating the path of discovery. Quickly, search while I hold them back, Elena commanded, resolute, her earlier softness replaced by fierce determination. The moment felt unreal. Time stretched like an elastic band ready to snap back. Clara rifled through boxes, her hands flying over photographs and torn letters, while I desperately searched alongside her, the urgency of our collective heritage spurring me on. A sense of unity shimmered in the air. We were no longer three strangers battling the shadows, but warriors entwined in a story of resilience and heartache, fighting for the souls lost in the fabric of our family's intertwined histories. What is this? Clara gasped, pulling out a delicate brooch shaped like a crescent moon. The moment she held it up, the locket around my neck pulsed with energy, threading a connection I felt deep in my soul. Elena rushed closer, her awed gaze locking onto the brooch. That belonged to Mother. She wore it for protection. With all of us together, I believe the artifacts will guide us against the darkness. Suddenly, the walls shuddered as the figures crashed into the cabin, eyes menacing and alive with hunger, claws of shadow stretching toward us. I felt a rush of terror, knowing we could not let them seize the legacy we were trying to reclaim. Now, I shouted, my heart pounding. Let's channel our energy. We stood shoulder to shoulder, hands clasped tightly. The warmth between us swelled as shadows clashed against the barrier my grandmother had formed. I could feel a hum of energy building within us, the locket glowing brilliantly against my chest, urging us to embrace both our fears and gifts. Together we are stronger, I declared, feeling every ounce of love and resilience surging through me. With a sudden and fierce energy, we unleashed the artifact, surges of light bursting forth and slashing into the oncoming darkness. The figures faltered, writhing against the tide of our united strength, dissipating like black smoke against the brilliance of our legacy. Keep holding on, Elena shouted, her voice rising above the noise, threading us closer together. We can break the cycle. As the echoes of our ancestors filled the air, the cabin erupted in a riot of colors and lights, lashing outward like an explosion, each artifact held aloft, carrying the voices of a family long silenced. In that moment of unity and resolve, the chaos erupted into ecstatic rhythm, illuminating the path while pushing the shadows further into the night until they vanished completely, banished by the very light they sought to extinguish. We collapsed to the ground, breaths heaving in the silence that now enveloped us, the air pregnant with the remnants of tremors and echoed laughter. The cabin, once filled with chasing shadows, now gleamed with the promise of a bond restored, a connection forged anew amongst the remnants of our family's histories. I didn't just find you, I said to Elena, my heart swelling beneath the weight of intertwined bonds forged in the fire of hardship. I found myself. Her tear-streaked face broke into a smile, the warmth flooding between us, a sacred promise to protect our legacy together. Clara's relieved laugh filled the air, light spilling into our little refuge, wrapping around us like a shield against the darkness that had once seemed insurmountable. For the first time, our past felt woven into something bright, a tapestry of choices, lessons learned, and strength born from vulnerability. Now we were not just fighting against shadows threatening to reclaim our family's secrets. Instead, we were revealing the beauty in what had once been hidden. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the remnants of despair, we stood united, hearts intertwined with hope. Together we were unstoppable, tethered not just by blood, but by the resilience of facing fears that bound us together forever. I am woven into you, I whispered, sensing the warmth encapsulating us under a new dawn. Not just as sisters or blood, but as partners in reclaiming our legacies. Our story wasn't just about discovering our identity. It was about love and acceptance, forgiveness and growth, about reclaiming not just the past, but a future entwined with light, ready to confront any challenge the world could bring. As dawn broke, the shadows of our past began to dissolve, revealing a canvas of bright possibilities. And I held on tight to Elena and Clara, not just as allies, but as the family I longed for, woven together by the threads of destiny. With hope igniting our spirits, we stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever came next, because now we knew the truth. Even in shadows, there exists an endless capacity for light. And as the sun climbed higher, casting warmth around us, I realized our story held the power to shape not only our lives, but generations to come. We might have lost our way once, but our hearts, our bonds were stronger than any darkness. Together we faced into the rising light, and for the first time I felt truly free.